Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode 5 of the Covering All Topics podcast with your host, Bryce Rankowitz and AJ Catanzaro.
Hola.
Hola, amigo. Hey, thank you everybody for tuning in. This venture that AJ and I have been on has been somewhat of a labor of love, and we appreciate every ounce of support that we've gotten so far. We've gotten a lot of great feedback. I hope it's something you guys are enjoying. We're going to continue to improve. I'll tell you what, I've never had such a love-hate relationship with technology, I don't think, in my life, trying to put this thing
Oh my
together.
gosh. It's way
Um,
harder than we could have ever imagined for some reason.
I know, but it's been a fun challenge, and we certainly enjoy doing it. But man, is it frustrating sometimes. Um, but we're going to continue to improve. So, look, we've gotten some good feedback about volume levels and microphones and all that good stuff, and we're ironing all that out. Like I said, this is a labor of love, and we're kind of doing some trial and error and seeing how it goes as we go along here. But we hope to continually improve. We've gotten a lot of great feedback, which we very much appreciate, and we're going to continue to try to deliver some content for you guys to enjoy. This episode was fun, huh, AJ?
Yeah, it's a topic I would kind of incorporate into conversations every single day of my life. So it just I don't know. It's you can never be perfect at it. You can always improve, and it makes for an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it does. So our guest for this episode was Jay Cavanaugh of RAK Racing, and Jay is one of his biggest strengths, and his kind of mantra is always about mental strength, and improving basically your mental state to maximize your potential in anything that you're doing. And he has a lot of great tips. He's in the process of writing a book about this. He's pretty much the embodiment of positivity and continually improving your mental game. And we had a long conversation with him about it. And look, this got to be a little motorsport specific, but I would encourage everybody to listen anyway, because there's a lot of takeaways well outside of the motocross and supercross scenes. And even though that's kind of the niche that AJ is in, and Jay is working on right now, and this podcast caters to, there are plenty of opportunities in this conversation where we've talked well outside of the motorsport realm, and there's just so much here. I think this is really just a scratching of the surface. I think Jay will come back. And look, be patient with it. If you're not grasping all the moto stuff and you're not in the motorsport realm, be patient and just see what you can get out of it. I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, and I think it transfers to any part of your life. You know, we use moto examples, but at the same time, I think it should be pretty easy to understand how to implement that in your everyday life. And
Uh,
it's something that you should practice in your everyday life. I mean, all the time from the time you wake up and we talk about our morning routines to the time you get in bed and get on the covers to go to sleep. It's something that it really does. Some people are naturally, I think, more positive than others. I think I'm very lucky to be just naturally a happy person. Um, but that doesn't mean I don't get pissed off and get road rage and get mad just like everyone else does. You just have to learn how to manage it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look, I think there's a lot of opportunity in any given day to dwell on the negative. And I think there's a more, you're more often consumed by negativity as opposed to positivity. But this episode, we talked about trying to maintain positivity, trying to set the stage every day for, having the best day, having the best performance, really getting the most out of life, really. Um, and so we really hope you enjoy the conversation. This episode is brought to you by the Collective Experience. And for anybody who hasn't listened to that episode with Dave Drakes of the Collective Experience, we encourage you to go back and listen to that. We had a nice chat with him where he talked about his background and what the Collective Experience is, but he has been gracious enough to support everything that we've been doing with the podcast, and we really want to give a big shout out to him. So we encourage everybody to go to the Collective Experience's website, which is thecollectivexp.com. And AJ is going to talk a little bit about what the Collective Experience is, how you can get involved, and show Dave some love.
Yeah, a couple exciting things with them too. It's just been really cool because taking kind of my entrepreneurial skills to the next level, and Dave is a big part of that. I can't do it all of this stuff on my own, and even though I might have an idea and Dave might have an idea, it takes the both of us, and more than the both of us, to make something happen. So we kind of came up with, and Dave came up with, the Supercross Futures amateur support program. So what this is this year we have a schedule. We got Glendale, Anaheim, Oakland, Indy, Houston, Nashville, Denver, and Vegas. So there's 3, 6, 7, there's 8 rounds for the Supercross Futures. So what I'm going to do for those rounds is I'm going to stay on Sunday, and we're basically going to offer our team support to whoever signs up for that Sunday, which is, it's a really awesome experience for any rider that does want to get involved. I mean, you'll have me by your side as a coach for the whole day, which I think is invaluable in itself. You'll be able to pit under our sprinter van. You'll have our crew there to help and assist you throughout the day. It'll kind of be like you'll have your own little factory support ride for the day, which is pretty darn awesome. So we have that, and then we have Dave has the internship program as well. So you can apply to be an intern under myself on the race weekends, whether it's you can go and make one race or you can go to 6 or 7 of them. This is just a great way to get your foot in the door in the sport. And we've had interns go on to work for Feld and go on to work for as factory mechanics within the industry, and it's really what you make of it. You know, you can come in and have the bubbly personality and meet a bunch of people, and that's what it's all about, right? So the Collective Experience really just it takes that to the next level.
Absolutely, and I think Dave is introducing a new part of the program this year, right? For mechanic specific stuff.
Yeah, well, actually, he hasn't talked to me a whole lot about that because I guess I wouldn't have too much involvement with it. But as I'm on the website, there is the tech mechanic support program as well. I'm assuming it looks like there's an application just as there is with the internship program. I would assume that's for people that are specifically looking to be mechanics, where the internship, you know, it could be a wide range. It could be a mechanic. It could be somebody that wants to be involved in press or media, photography, anything along those lines.
Very cool. So again, we encourage everybody to go check Dave's website out at thecollectivexp.com. The Collective Experience, connecting you with your dreams. Thank you very much, Dave, for your support. And without further ado, why don't we get into this conversation with Jay?
Yes, sir.
Enjoy, everybody.
Hey guys, what's going on? AJ Catanzaro here, aka Albert, with my co-host Bryce Renkiewicz.
Hola, amigos.
And we have with us Jason Cavanaugh from RAK Racing.
When have you ever called me Jason?
Never in my life. I don't know why I just said that. I was trying to make it formal.
What do you do? Google me or something? I think on Google I'm Jason, but in real life I'm just Jay.
What? How many people refer to you as Jason?
My grandmother and my dead grandfather.
Oh.
Oh, so it's like how many people call me Albert?
I call you Albert.
I want more people to call me Albert, though.
Well, other AJ, he has an interesting name too, right? Well, we call him Akeem.
Akeem Jamal. But yeah. It's very normal otherwise. So
what is his name? I don't even know.
I don't know. Alexander.
Ah, okay. All right, Jay. I thought your name was just Jay.
It's Jay Cav. In the moto world, a lot of the guys I race against call me Jay Cav. That just seems to be the way that it's gone. So Jay Cav is the preferred name. But hey, what do you think about Fat Albert? If you were to gain some weight, AJ, Fat Albert, that's got a nice ring to it.
Well, over the holidays, now that I'm going to be a future uncle to some kids, I was getting all excited about my uncle name. So I could be Uncle Al. I could be Uncle
Uncle.
Bert.
Hey, congratulations, AJ, by the way. Let's make that official. AJ just recently got engaged, and that is exciting. I'm so excited. But I'm busy the day of the wedding. I don't care when it is. I'm definitely
same.
busy that day.
I don't think I can make it either. But Uncle Al, Uncle Bert, lots of good names. And then when I'm a grandpa, real good options. Grandpa Albert.
That's stupid, Grandpa Albert.
I'm excited about it. So, Jay, you just got back from Mini O's, which I'm really, really jealous. Fill us in.
So Mini O's was great. It was an awesome opportunity. So as far as riders go, I have 4 riders. One of my new riders I took on for mental coaching is Owen Covell. He's got the cutest brother in the world ever, Austin, and his dad, Adam, awesome guy, just like an awesome parent. And they said, hey, if you want a place to sleep, we've got a bed for you in the camper. Would love to have you come down. And I definitely needed a mental break from some of the punches I've been taking directly to the face with life lately. So I said, what a great opportunity to get to know the Covells better and inspire some kids and meet some industry people and see what I can do to set up my riders for 2019 with some connections and just learn and interact with, moto people. I mean, I kind of miss it from Supercross, and, obviously I went to a couple motocross races locally, but it's the closest thing to Supercross before Supercross for me personally.
So you stayed the whole week, right?
Oh yeah, I was there the whole week and had no reception. I think the girlfriend thought I was cheating on her. So I definitely struggled with that. It's funny how much you rely on social media and internet connections. And it was funny because if you would wake up at 6 o'clock, from 6 to 6:30 or anytime before 6:30, you could post like on social media. If you waited until 6:30 or past, no social media, no access, no internet.
Why is that?
Weird.
It's a usage thing, apparently.
Really?
If you're in the town of Gainesville, only 10
social
people
media
can be on the internet at once.
Well, Jay, you rely on social media a lot. I mean, you're one of the very few people where I see like 10 dots for a story and I'll watch them all.
Yes. My angle is to not use social media to show people nice cars or expensive dinners I'm partaking in, but instead to use it for business. And so it's really actually worked out quite well for me. And it's even opened up some doors. I got an opportunity to take over the Instagram for FXR Moto, thanks to Andy this week at Mini O's. And it was a great opportunity. And that opportunity only arose because is that proper English, by the way? Because I know you like to correct people.
Yes.
Arose?
That sounded right to me.
Is that okay? It's one word, not two. It's arose, not
correct.
A rose. Okay. So the opportunity arose, and Andy kind of liked my style. And, I try to give without much of an agenda other than to inspire people. And I think that resonated. It has resonated with a lot of people, and especially with the right people, with Andy. And I have a couple other things I'm working on for Supercross because, I'd like to have at least an opportunity to represent some brands and maybe even get some of my, bills covered when I go to a Supercross. I'm not looking to make a ton of money, but I wouldn't mind decreasing my expenses when I go to a Supercross race.
So fill us all in on what you do. I mean, not for a normal 9-to-5 job, or you could tell us that too. But more so like the past 6 months to a year, what you've really done with RAK Racing, and explain to people what RAK Racing is.
Sure. I mean, I think the one thing that a lot of people probably even listening to this podcast have always said is that once you're in moto, you don't want to get out of moto. It's like a drug, and a good healthy drug, of course. And I've always wanted to be a professional Supercross racer, but I had an injury way, way back in the day. I won't even mention the year, where my left foot doesn't move up, so I can't shift. And so that was basically took all the wind out of my sails, but took some time off from moto, but just realized I couldn't get away from it. And so I've always struggled I've said to myself, I want to be in this industry in some capacity, and I could never figure out what it was, but I never gave up. I just kept trying things. I tried digital marketing, which I'm great at, but it just didn't seem like the industry has enough money to support kind of some of what I wanted to charge. And basically just fell into it because I was like, I've got to find a value that I can provide motocross, supercross, so that I can be a part of the industry in a deeper way, more involved way, and just fell in love with, self improvement, and, the mental game for myself personally. And then when I realized that no one had taken, like, you got someone like, sometimes people say like Tony Robbins, like we all know him, right? But Tony Robbins speaks in a very generalized way, right?
Right.
Everyone. But I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I had my own version that was a little rougher, a little more moto tuned, if you will, and specific to moto, because it's a whole different world that you're either in or you don't understand it. I mean, it's definitely a tight community, and it's been a great ride, and it keeps growing. And I had conversations with people this weekend at Mini O's, like Nate Ramsey. Do you guys remember Nate Ramsey, 125 West Center?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So he won a championship, and he's working for Red Bull KTM now, and he's involved in their amateur program, the Orange Brigade. And it was really great to talk to him. Spoke with Tim Fury, also Donald of XL Trainer. A lot of people I bumped into, even the Rock River manager. I even played cornhole with some of the American Honda guys. But when you show when you talk about the mental game, you'd be surprised how many people really become interested in it, because it is very powerful, and all of us struggle with it in some capacity or another. So here we are today, and I'm writing a book on it and hoping to just keep pushing with it and see where it goes. But I'm very happy with the direction I've gone so far.
Isn't it weird how things work out? I mean, we met in 2015, I want to say. And you live the town of, and for people that don't know, I'm from Portland, Connecticut. Jay, you live in East Hampton, Connecticut. They're neighboring towns. But I met you in Phoenix, if my memory serves me properly. I met you at Phoenix Supercross, and you've just become more and more a part of my program. You've become a good friend, and it's just weird how things work out. Like you were saying, you're trying to figure out a way you could get involved more so in the sport. And who would have thought that it would have been this way? And even right, and even when you first mentioned RAK Racing, I'm like, yeah, that's a cool idea, right? But I might have even been the one that was guilty of brushing that off as one of your 100 ideas that maybe won't pan out. But it was one of the 100 ideas that worked, because it's right. Even when you have your Instagram, and for people that don't follow RAK Racing, what's your Instagram? It's just rakracing.com, or sorry, just RAK Racing, or is there a hyphen or something?
Yeah, at RAK Racing. And don't forget, RAK stands for Random Acts of Kindness, so it's RAK Racing. And, I just realized I never even said what I truly do in its most simple form, which is I do mental coaching for currently four riders. 100% of the profits I generate from that mental coaching goes towards Random Acts of Kindness that I tag my racers in to give them credit to show that they can have a positive effect on the world, which I think is pretty cool.
Which is awesome. You go to the website and you could actually see like a bar, a status bar almost, with the contributions from your sponsored riders. Pretty awesome to see. But if you go to your Instagram, and I know I'm not the only one, I know Bryce, everyone that I talk to talks about your Instagram stories. And it's funny, you almost have to put aside a little part of your day to watch them. Like I'll click onto your story and it'll have like 20 bars. I'm like, oh wait, I don't have time for that now, but let me remember to click on that later. And then I make sure, like, before I go to bed, I go in and I watch all of them. And they're pretty awesome. Even if it's stuff you already know, which of course a lot of it is stuff that I know, it's always good to be reminded of it. Right?
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is, the older I've gotten, the more I tell my good friends, hey man, I love you. Yeah, I love you too. And I hang up with them on a phone. The more I'm sharing my feelings and stuff, like, stuff that back in the day you wouldn't think was cool, right? Like nobody talks about their struggles or, what have you, or what goes through their mind. I mean, sometimes you have some crazy things that go through your mind. Sometimes you have some great things, but no one ever seems to really talk about them. And the females talk about it a lot. They talk about their emotions. And to me, the more I talk to people and ask them how much of motocross, supercross is the mental game, the average answer is 50 to 80%, but no one talks about it. And a lot of it is talking about feelings, thoughts, and being aware of where your mind goes and knowing that you have control over your thoughts. And once you're aware of the fact that you can control your thoughts, it's so empowering. Like, it's so empowering. Like, you're like, wow, I literally can choose how my day is going to be. And I can choose how I react to a situation. And it's not just something that happens. I'm not just you're not a passive. You can be actively involved in how you feel and how you think.
That's absolutely true, Jay. And just I would second what AJ said about how it's so strange how things work out, because I met you last year in Daytona for the first time. And, sometimes in life you just hit it off with somebody. And I feel like you and I just hit it off right away. And I tell everybody that because it was like one of those moments where we just vibed. Everything we were talking about, and a lot of it was shit about AJ. Like talking shit about AJ, we connected over.
I know a lot of people bond over that category.
Hey, well, you got to take those opportunities and run with them, AJ, because there's not very many of them. So we're gonna relish in it when we can. But no, I mean,
I respect it.
What did we say about him? I forget. Do you recall?
Oh, that he sucks, and that he's like a baby, and he should quit Supercross, all that kind of stuff.
Are we bad?
Sounds about right.
No. I know it was, what we actually first started talking about, I think, was it the morning of the race. We were, going through like the preparation, the mental preparation, because that's when that was around the time where he and I were starting to delve into getting a little bit more mentally prepared, based on our discussions that we were having during our training sessions. And we kind of just got into that groove. And you were talking to me about how you have the routine in the morning that you do, pumping yourself up. And I think we just hit it off with how powerful that the mental game was. And then the day of the race, we at Track Walk, your goal was to talk to Ryan Dungey about this exact topic, and boom, then it happened. And we're having a discussion with Ryan. It's like those things where how many things have to be coincidences before they're not coincidences anymore, right? And I think we actually even said that exact phrase that day. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, you're a very charismatic guy. Everybody in the pits knows you somehow. I mean, I think Chad Reed walked by at one point and you were like, "Hey, Chad." And he was like, "Hey, Jay." I'm like, how does this guy know everybody? But you just have a magnetic personality. You definitely live everything that you preach. I mean, if you guys check out Jay's Instagram and watch a couple days worth of his stories and follow him, you might, somebody who doesn't know you might say, okay, this guy's full of shit. There's no way. But then you hang out in person with you and you see like you're just living everything that you say. It's a very powerful sentiment.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, that's like a huge compliment, and it's true. And so, yeah, and it resonates with people just because, a lot of this stuff applies to just real life. And it's funny because with moto, what I tell my guys is you can train for moto in the mental game of moto while you're not on the track, because all the mental strategies that I recommend and I preach and coach and teach are things that you can practice in everyday situations. I mean, if I get pulled over by a police officer, if I have a flat tire, I've had some bad things go wrong, and my mental game, because I practice it, you get good at it, because you can't get good at anything unless you practice it, right? So think about how many opportunities that, like, I mean, come on, AJ, let's use you for an example. When's the last time you upset Allie and like said something that maybe you regret, or something where she responded differently than you anticipated, and you had an opportunity to maybe use some of the things I talk about or that you're aware of through, the mental game to kind of respond to it or figure it out or fix it.
So I think Bryce can attest to this too. Like I would consider myself a really patient person.
Exceptionally patient.
which takes a lot of practice, because you kind of like have to always remind yourself in those moments, like, oh, well, it could be way worse. You know what I mean? And I think in regards to Allie and in a relationship, I think I almost am that way to a fault, where I'm so not practical. What's the word I'm looking for? Like I'm just so like emotionless, because I'm able to not freak out, not panic, able to think logically all the time. That
Pragmatic, I think, is the word you were looking for.
that she and females in general, I think, are just very act on emotion, and she doesn't see a lot of that emotion from me. So that's something that I have to work on, is showing her emotion, because right now, like a situation can come up and we can be in a fight, and I don't even want to call it a fight, because it's never a fight. I can sit there and calmly talk about, okay, this is probably what I should work on. I know I can improve on this. I'm sorry I didn't do this. And it almost, I think it kind of upsets her, because she wants to see me like, I think she would be happy if I was yelling or being emotional. You know what I mean? But in a way that it's good to be like that, and especially in a lot of aspects of life, because Bryce, you're kind of the opposite sometimes. Like we'll get into a situation and you'll lose your patience really easily.
Oh yeah, that's
And
we're a good
well,
balance.
right. And you know, like I just have the craziest things happen to me. I could be stuck at the airport forever, and the flight gets canceled, and just one thing after the other. And it's like, well, you know, I'm healthy. Like you always have to pick out, and I'm excited about this podcast, because this could go a million different ways. But you can always look at the positives in any situation. I was on YouTube today, and I clicked into a Tony Robbins video. He was on the Dr. Oz show, and he did like a quick 5-minute review with 3 people that he picked out of the audience. And the first thing that he told these people was that no matter what the situation is, you can always find one thing to be grateful for, to be excited about, to be happy about. And it doesn't have to be related to what you're doing in the moment. You could stub your toe and feel like you broke your toe, and just come up with a random thought of, well, yeah, the sun's out. You know what I mean? And it'll take
Yeah.
your mind off of your toe that you just broke.
Well, that's actually a good segue and a way for me to interject with an experience that I had. And Jay and I talked a couple weeks ago, and I brought this up, where one of Jay's techniques that he mentioned in one of his Instagram posts was, when you're feeling like you're kind of going down a negative path, like you know, and oftentimes that has like a physical manifestation. Like you get anxious, you get,
Right.
jittery, you start feeling like things aren't going right, whether it's a bad day at work, whether it's something in your personal life that's not working out. Like people know what that feels like. But what Jay recommended, and I practiced, was physically change your physical state, and your mind will follow it. So I was having a bad day. I don't know what it was, something at work, stressing me out, whatever. And I felt myself kind of going, and it was right after I saw Jay's post, and I was like, you know what? Let's see what happens here. And I just was like, I'm happy now. And I put a big smile on my face, and I like puffed my chest out, and I started like demonstrating the physical attributes of somebody who was happy, in a good mood. And damn it, it worked. Like I literally felt myself from going from like this negative downward spiral to like, holy crap, I'm good. I'm happy. Let's get on with it. I mean, I'm ready to go for the rest of the day. Like, and that was a powerful moment for me, because as silly and as common sense as that sounds, people don't practice it necessarily. And it wasn't until like I watched Jay do it. I watched his advice. I listened to it, and I implemented it. And it, like, I use that almost every day now, where I feel myself kind of going to a negative. And it doesn't have to be something dramatic or crazy or anything, but like it works. It just works.
You change your physiological state, and everything else will follow. Like, and that's what this Tony Robbins quick little thing was about too. And he goes, imagine somebody is behind this curtain, and if you answer this correctly right now, you win $1 million. He's like, this person is depressed. How are they standing? Are they standing with their chest up, or are they standing slouched over? They're standing slouched over. Are they breathing deep breaths, or are they breathing short breaths? They're breathing short breaths. And he went through this whole long thing, and the crowd was able to answer this very easily. So he said, okay, stand straight up, even put your hands on your hips. Just take deep breaths, put a smile on your face, think about something you could be grateful for. And basically what it is, it's just like a little, almost like a power move, right? And it changes your physiological state. And next thing you know, you're happy or you're excited. And it's the same thing when I start thinking about a race and visualizing a race, and the visualization goes wrong, which it does a lot of the time. I start to get like sweaty palms, and I start to get short of breath. And what you're doing is you're that physiological state is going into like that bad cycle that you don't want it to go in.
It's a downward spiral. Yep.
Oh, for sure. And then that's when you have to watch out, like, because once that spiral starts, you can get out of it, but, being aware of it before it happens, the earlier you can identify it, the quicker you can stop it and either neutralize it. In other words, it doesn't get worse, or you can neutralize and then head back in the opposite direction. Like with me, I'll always say that if you're racing and you're on the track and something goes wrong, you have two buttons you can hit. You can either put the reset button, which of course we had a lot of fun with that in Arizona last year,
which I want
to
talk about in here in a minute.
Or you hit the panic button. And the problem is a lot of guys in moto go to the panic button when things don't go right in a moto. And then what happens is when you hit the panic button, what happens next, right? And you start to ride differently. You might ride more over your head. And then what happens? You crash, and I hate to pick on anyone, but I personally, and you're a better analysis of moto and Supercross, AJ, but Marvin Musquin, I honestly feel that he is the classic, like, hit the panic button instead of the reset button. I don't know. I've seen it in my opinion, but what do you think? Who do you see hitting the panic button instead of the reset? And do you think Marvin does that?
Marvin does a little bit to me. One guy who does it under like big pressure situations seems to be a Tomac. Does he not? Like, Tomac is the most. I think I've said this before. He's the most. He has the most human qualities of any of the elite guys I've ever seen. You can see Tomac in one Saturday night be a complete beast, and okay, that guy's not human. And then the next weekend, one thing starts to happen, next thing starts to happen, and it's like his whole thing just crumbles to pieces.
I do agree with you, and I think what's exemplary there is he can much easierly, God darn it, I can't speak. He can very easily come from the back on a bad start and go on a tear through the laps and catch everybody and end up in the top of the pack. But he seldom can go from the top,
Right.
fall off the back, and make it back. So I think that's like a prime example.
And I think that's a way for him to like
that.
take the pressure off. It's probably a subconscious thought, and I'm guilty of that too, where there's times where I'm sitting on the line and I think really deep down I don't want to get the start. And I've said this before, and some people might think that sounds crazy. Some people might think, oh, I've had that same thought. There's times where I don't want to get the whole shot, because it's a way of just taking that little bit of pressure off yourself. It's very hard to explain, so that you could kind of have that underdog mindset, and you can just build it. And I know that's probably not the best way to do it. Like, even when I was on the line for the final at Red Bull Straight Rhythm, I look over at Jeremiah and I go, Jeremiah, my whole body's cramping. I'm like, I haven't had any of my electrolyte stuff today. I haven't had any salt pills. I'm like, my hand's cramping as I'm pulling in the clutch. And he goes, well, he's like, you always need something to go wrong before you could do well. So just consider that. I'm like, yeah, good point.
So, Jay, how do we combat that? And this is for everybody listening as much as it is for AJ right now, because, when I'm hearing it, I'm thinking, okay, use that as an opportunity. You've been at the front, AJ, you've gotten stars. I remember that when a couple of years ago, you I think you weren't you on the Racer X Instagram like main post where I think it was in New Jersey and you had the whole shot over like Muscan and everybody,
Yeah.
Dungy.
Well, there's times where I believe that I should have it and I believe that I deserve to get it, and that's when I get it. But it's very hard for me to fake that confidence. You know, like when I go into an LCQ and I know that I'm going to qualify to that LCQ, I still get nervous, but I know that I belong to like being the top one or two of that LCQ. And I will will my way to a hole shot, whether I have last gate pick, first gate pick, far inside, far outside. It doesn't matter. I'm going to get the hole shot in the LCQ. But it's hard for me to fake that belief. I think it's hard for anyone to fake that belief.
Right. So the hard part is to emulate that feeling when it's a more opportune time for it.
Right. And there's ways to do it, just like the power move. And I've worked with my mental coach a lot, and Jay helps with all of this stuff. Like when you're on the line, the key is to go through your process, have your power move, have whatever it is that you do to try to get you into that state. But for me, I find it very, very difficult if I don't truly line up believing, if I even glance to my left or glance to my right and I see, you know, a Tomac or a Muskin or somebody like that, it's when I start counting in my head, all right, well, that's one more guy that should beat me. And I know that people listening to this podcast are like, oh man, this is a pro rider that's saying all this stuff. Everyone struggles with this in one form or another. I might probably struggle, you know, more than a lot of people. But then if you put me on an NESC race, any local race, I would say, okay, well, I'm going to win, obviously.
Right.
And I don't have that weird state. I'm in the right state. But Jay, can you elaborate on that? I mean, even from your experience racing cars or racing supermoto, racing motocross, I mean, what would be kind of your advice to somebody that gets into that state of mind?
Yeah, so two things come to mind. One, you know, AJ, when you had mentioned that you were saying things, I use a mnemonic, I think it's called. I use EAST. So it's easy to remember EAST. When it's a race day, you got to think of four things. The E is for effort, 100% effort. A is for attitude, positive attitude, always be thinking positive and pushing in growth. And then the S and the T. The T stands for thoughts. I went out of order. However, the S stands for what you state or say. And I think one of the things that you mentioned twice, actually, because I was paying attention to this, is that, you know, you state certain things. You have to be really careful. If you think something on a scale of like 1 to 10, it's like a level 6. Like it's not good. Like if it's a negative thing, you're empowering your thoughts. Every time you let a thought stay in your mind, I always look at it as I'm giving it energy, strength. I'm empowering it, right?
Right.
And then if you state it, instead of going, you know, let's say we call it a 6 out of 10, stating it to me is like a 9, you know, out of 10. You have to be really careful what you say. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I told you guys this story, but I lost my contract where I work after 12 years. And ironically enough, as I was walking into my job that day, I was on the phone with my sister, and the very conversation I had walking from my car to the entrance was, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't like this place and I got to get out. And I was like, hey, I got to go. I hung up, walked in, and this is like real time. Like I walked in, within a minute and a half, the manager has a note in my office that says, we need to go in the back office. Said, okay, I never go in the back office. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. What is this? We go in the back office. They said, hey, we're not going to renew your contract. You're done in 30 days. And for the first like 3 to 5 minutes, you know, you get defensive. You take it personally. You know, I was a little upset and I was like,
Right.
oh, what I do wrong? You always blame yourself, right? And, you know, I went through all the normal processes, but after 5 minutes, I stopped and I said, wait a minute. I stated this. Like literally, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I said this walking in, I empowered it. And it's funny, like, and I'm not saying that it always happens. You'll just walk around and state something, you know, hey, that blonde girl wants me. And then she just jumps. It's not like that. But when you're deserving, I think the key word is when you're deserving of something, and when you want something bad enough, there's some sort of energy out in the universe that really knows about it. Because I've stated it multiple times, but this is the one time where it just became reality. So one, be careful what you state, because you empower that. And we also talk about, we talk about the reset, right? So, you got to hit that reset button. Whenever your thoughts are going down the wrong road, hit that reset button, stop, give yourself a second to say, hey, this thought doesn't serve me. I always ask myself, if I'm thinking something, does this serve me? If I'm saying something, does this serve me? Hey, Marvin's going to get the whole shot. Eli's faster than me. Who else on the line? Let's see who else we got here. That guy's fast. That guy's faster. You got to stop, and hit that reset button, because every time you think something or state it, you're empowering it. So you got to be really careful and be aware that life is a choice. Happiness is a choice, right? Like do you guys know that one time I was driving down the road and I said, I was neutral, right? I wasn't upset. I wasn't happy. I said, I want to be happy right now. And I did an experiment. And I said, what do I think that makes me happy? What do I hear that makes me happy? What do I smell that makes me happy? And I started naming off anything. And I was like, yellow makes me happy. There's a yellow sign. Oh, cool. And I said, what sounds I love 80s music. I found 80s music. I started playing that. Then I started getting a little happier. And then I was like, wow, I'm starting to dance around a little bit. I like to dance. Like, dancing makes me happy. And then before you know it, I had to go to the restroom. I get out. I'm jumping up and down. I see this woman. I'm like, hey, how's your day going? Then I see another guy. I'm like, hey, let me get the door for you. And then I asked some guy, get this, how crazy is this? I asked some guy, I said, I'll give you $20 if you tell me what makes you happy. He goes, I love my family. They're everything to me. And without them, I would be nothing. I whip out a 20, give it to him. And I was like, what the heck just happened in the last 6 to 8
Right.
it was I'm not kidding. It was one of the wildest things I've ever done. And it was one of the most empowering things I've ever done, because it's like I had complete control.
Right. And it's just energy. And if I believe in anything, I'm not a very religious person, anything like that. I believe in just energy and that positive energy. And it takes practice to do something like that. Somebody cuts out in front of you on the road and you want to flick them off, but it's like, well, what is that really going to, I had it happen today. Some guy in a white van just pulled straight out of an intersection and just stopped. And I had to stop myself from having a quick little freak out moment. And I was like, you know what? Where is that going to get me? And I just patiently waited until he pulled away, and then I continued about my own business. It takes constant practice, constant effort. One thing you talked about as far as this being race related was catching yourself in the act of having those thoughts. And one little thing I do, and people can try this out, is when you have one of those thoughts, just simply think to yourself, that's just a thought, let it go. And by the time you've thought it's just a thought, let it go, whatever you were thinking about, it's gone. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the beauty of that. And I'm notorious for when I go to visualize something, which is why I don't visualize short-term stuff. Like when I'm on the line, I don't visualize the first lap necessarily, because my visualizations always lead to bad outcomes, which visualization takes practice as well. But if any of that leads to a bad outcome or a bad thought pops in my head, I always go, just a thought, let it go. And what my mental coach taught me was the reset. And Bryce, you don't know about the reset, do you?
No, let's hear it.
So me and Jay and I have, how do you properly say that?
So what's the rest of the sentence? That's going to let me determine what it's going to be.
Jay and I have all types of fun with this.
Yes, it would be Jay and I. Okay. Because if you remove Jay from the sentence and said, I have all type of fun with this, that still is grammatically correct. So it's Jay and I. Go ahead. Okay. Proceed.
Okay. Thank you. Jay and I have all kinds of fun with this. And you can kind of have a buddy system with it, because you can catch each other. So what the reset is if you have a negative, not even thought, like I'm talking a negative action, or you start just slouching over, or you get angry at somebody, you just yell reset. And me and Jay and I Where were we, Jay? Was this in Phoenix?
Yeah, that was Glendale, Phoenix last year.
So what we did, Bryce, is I think that was the first day that we implemented it. And what we did is anytime something began to go wrong, we would catch each other. So I would catch Jay, Jay would catch me, we would catch Mike, Mototape Mike, whoever was there with us, we were all catching each other. And what we would just say is reset. And we go, oh shoot, sorry, okay. And then we get back on the right track and be positive. If you said something negative and they said reset, you had to then turn that negative into a positive, which would end up being hysterical too, and it would make everyone laugh. Like if you got mad on the road, I would say reset, and Jay would just be like, "Oh, she's a nice woman. Let's just let her go." At the end of the weekend, Jay and I both looked at each other, and we were like, "How much collective time do you think we were being negative this entire weekend?" And I'm like, honestly, it had to have been less than a minute worth of negativity. Where if you added up every little moment in an average person's weekend, you could probably be 20, 30, 40 minutes of negative thoughts, right?
Oh yeah,
Oh, more than
definitely.
that. I would
I would say
say
way more than that.
Especially Bryce. With
25%.
Bryce, you're talking 4 to 5 hours.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm just a spiral of negativity all the time.
But it's a blast, and it's so much fun. It's so much fun to do. And
So let me ask you this, and I don't remember, so forgive me. I'm a bad friend.
okay,
How did that translate into your riding?
I don't remember, but I don't remember at all. But I would assume that I did well, and if not,
Let's
I
do a
think,
little Google search. I'm just kidding.
yeah, I probably did terrible. But I also this year did a really good job of not basing my weekend, like the recapping the weekend, on results. Even if I got a bad result, I think, and Jay can attest to this, he was at a lot of races this year. We took the positive from the weekend. I said, okay, this is what I learned. This is what we're bringing to next weekend. Awesome. Where in the past, I would miss the main, and the whole Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all I could think about was I didn't make the main event. I didn't think about anything positive that I did. I only thought about the one negative thing. Even if I rode great and I made a little mistake and missed the main, all I could think about was that one little negative thing.
Do you know why? I do. I have an idea.
Why?
Perfectionism. Do you like to be perfect? Like it seems like a lot of people in moto like want to be perfect and they expect perfection, and I just don't understand that concept. Like why does everyone think everything's going to be perfect, everything's going to go well? It's not. It's moto. It's chaos. There's so many variables out of your control. And you know what? If you worry about something that's out of your control, it's useless. Like you can't worry about me. You can't worry about me banging into you or Marvin banging into your bike blowing up. You can't control that. I mean, yes, you can theoretically prep your bike better to decrease chance of happening, but you can you should only be thinking about what you can control. And once again, it's like perfectionism. It's like people in the sport as a whole seem to really put too much pressure on themselves. And it's like, well, if I don't win, like if I'm a top 5 guy and I don't win, it's like it was a waste for me to be here.
Right.
And it's like I don't quite understand that mentality. And not to pick on Marvin again, but because I tried talking to him. Do you remember when I tried talking? I wrote him a letter at US Bank. That was pretty crazy. But I do crazy stuff, and sometimes I take chances, and I think,
and sometimes it works.
I don't mind failing. Yeah, sometimes it works. But my goal is fail often, but fail fast. So I try to fail fast, and that seems to work for me. But back to the point is like when you listen to podium speeches, if you really want to do something interesting, listen to podium speeches. I listened to, I think it was Glenn Helen. I don't remember what moto it was, Moto 1, Moto 2. Glenn Helen last year. If I recall, it was Tomac, Anderson, Musken. So whenever that was, I don't know when that was. But anyways, it was definitely Glenn Helen-ish, I think. And so when you listen to it, like Jason Anderson was like, yeah, I threw down. I tried my best. I pushed. He didn't win. I think Eli won. But and then Eli's speech was, the typical Eli speech. But when you got to Marvin, all he did was beat himself up. Well, second is not good enough. I should push harder. I make
That
mistakes.
is a phenomenal impression.
I love my wife, of course, but I do not love myself. And so he beats himself up. And I called him out on it at US Bank. I literally jumped onto the track during a press
Press
day
day
or
on
whatever.
Friday. Yeah.
And I literally had the guts where I was like, he needs to know he's beating himself up and it's not serving him. I said, I don't understand how he's not seeing this. So I wrote a letter on the plane, like nothing too crazy. It was like a 1-page, like hitting all the bullet points real quick. Handed it to him. I jumped on to US Bank. Jerry Robin was sitting next to me. I think you were there too.
Yeah.
And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I got to hand this letter to Marvin. I didn't write it for fun. And what are the odds of Marvin Muskin, of all the people, standing alone? He was legit alone on the track. And I'm like, I have to do this because the energy is telling me that this is the right thing to do right now. And so I handed it to him and he got very defensive. At first, he was very open-minded. He was very open-minded to the conversation, but I did say something that triggered him. I don't recall what it was, but it got ugly pretty fast and I felt uncomfortable. And that was the end of the conversation. I don't know what he did with that information. Yeah, I pieced out.
No.
I think that's a problem too. It's hard, and especially being in his shoes, you have a million people trying to give you guidance and talking in your ear, and there's so much good to be taken from a lot of different places, but there's also a lot of useless crap that's coming your way too. And even for me, and it's on a far lesser scale than someone like Marvin Muskin, but I have people trying to get in my corner all the time, people trying to tell me to do this, tell me to do that. And what I've learned is it's just to try to take the useful pieces as they come and ignore, the useless stuff that's coming in. For someone like that, I don't know, maybe he's like, oh, who's this guy? Why is he telling me what to do?
100%.
I don't know. But you do
100%.
absolutely see it in his interviews. And I love my wife, of course, but I don't love myself.
That was pretty good.
It was awesome.
I loved it.
That's what he
Did I sound like him a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I would think that listeners would probably think it was him.
Maybe we should do that. Should we take your next podcast and say it's Marvin on, see if we can get like 2,000 downloads or something?
Yeah. We'll clickbait.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
we'll just have you on the whole time.
Yeah, I'll just doubt myself and negative self-talk. Now, and you know what? And I'm not trying to pick on Marvin. I mean, honestly, I respect him tremendously. It just, I just wish that he saw what I saw. And, maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. Because you know what he said to me? I don't think I told you this. I did not say this. He said, you do not know me. And he's right. He's right. I don't know him, but I do know what I hear and I do know what I think. And you know what I told him at the beginning of the conversation? I said, just so you know, this advice comes from a place of, I think I actually said this word, love. I said, I'm not trying to attack you, demean you. I said, I genuinely feel something is important that I wanted to say, so much that I even wrote it down, so I respect him for the fact that I was giving him advice, and who the hell am I? I'm some random guy that jumped onto a press day triple, and I respect his desire to, and maybe I was too aggressive. I don't know. I have a tendency to not have the best delivery. So, and I know that's been a problem with me for a while. And so I'm aware of it. So maybe I said something that triggered him. Who knows? But either way, more people need to be aware of what they say, what they think, how they feel, how they react, and ask themselves the tough questions. Does this serve me? My girlfriend will say, I'm not a morning person. Right. And AJ, you even said it yourself, a couple minutes ago. You said, I never, wait, what was the exact quote that you had? I always visualize things going wrong. Now,
Right.
You say that, but you just empowered it, didn't you?
Right. And that doesn't have to be the truth. I just make it the truth.
It's
Correct.
the nocebo effect. It's literally the nocebo effect. Like, you're anti-placebo. You're taking your mind and literally turning it into a bad result before you've even done anything.
Yep. And it's very common.
Oh, for sure. Hey, not to change the subject, but did you guys know that Ken Roxon got a Clinique for Men sponsorship?
Yeah, I showed that to
I
Allie
saw
last
that.
night. Pretty cool.
I saw that.
Thoughts?
Yeah.
What do you think of that? What do you think, Bryce?
I think
what do you think?
I guess being the resident metrosexual of the group, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, hey, why not? right?
Do you use
Um,
Clinique already? I mean, are you already a
oh,
customer
no,
or a
no,
client?
no, I don't. But like, I don't think it's
I'm a
outside of
Kiehl's
his
guy
MO.
myself.
Like, he's a pretty GQ dude. Like,
Right.
I mean, I think it's awesome. He shows up like everywhere he goes and fancy suits, and he's a polished, like strapping guy, like handsome, and I think he would have a career in that realm if it weren't for motocross. Honestly, not sound.
I think that's what all of these guys should be doing. I mean, I think that's awesome. The more
I think it's
outside,
great for the
oh,
sport,
absolutely. The more
for
outside
sure.
sponsors we could get in, the better. I
Well,
don't
what
care.
happened
I don't
back
care
in the
what the
day?
heck it is.
Like, we used to have Tide, like we used to have big everyday brands, right? Like
Oh,
Tide,
Chevy trucks, absolutely.
not Old Spice, but something like that. One of the deodorants too, I think, right? Speed Stick maybe or something. I don't know.
It could be.
But there were other sponsors, and and why aren't they here? And I'll tell you why. Is because when I took over the FXR Instagram, there were so many people that were sending DMs saying, "Hey, can you give me gear? Hey, can you give me gear?" Well, what have you done for me? You
Hate
like,
that.
like if I'm a brand, what have you done for me? And I took that gig for FXR for Mini O's, and I didn't get paid, and I didn't want to get paid because I haven't proven myself yet. I said, give me a chance to prove myself. I haven't even talked to Andy about a deal or what I want to do and what my plan is for coming up in Supercross season, because I want to prove myself to him. And we spoke very candidly about that. I said, I want to provide value to your brand, and if I can't do that, I don't want you to pay me a dime.
Right.
Straight up.
That's very
And-
introspective.
You should see
Yeah.
how many direct messages I get on Instagram with people wanting me to sponsor them and I'm like, with what
Me
resources
not included.
exactly?
Not including me.
It's like,
and when you ask them, what do I get? What's their answer? What's the response?
say that again. When what?
If you were to ask them, what do I get? Or what's the value in it for me? Looking at this, not from a, not being disrespectful, just straight up business standpoint, like what's in it for me? What's their answer? Like, because if you put my logo on the side of your bike, it doesn't have as much value as people think.
No, I don't even respond to those people, but I'd be curious to know. Maybe next time I get a message, I'll just ask, what does that do for me exactly? But then there's the people that approach it in a totally different way, which I love, like, hey, send me your logo. I'd love to just throw it on my bike. Okay, great. And, and then it kind of builds from there. Like, I want to help people out. I genuinely do, but so many people are just so entitled for no reason.
I would say that and maybe I'm wrong here, but I think the culture of Instagram and social media as a whole, I think the people who are in it purely for the benevolence of it are very, very few and far between. I think it's all about getting the social media attention, likes, shares, whatever. They're asking for AJ Cat and Zero's this, that, or the next thing. Whether they want your help or you to help them. I don't know. I would if it were me, I would be cynical about it too.
Reset, guys. Reset.
Reset. Yeah. Hey, can I change the subject a little bit? Because I want to bring it back, because a lot of what, Jay, you preach and talk about is so applicable well outside of motocross. And I mean, your techniques, your strategies, your mental game prowess, like it has implications that can help anybody, anyone in school or professionally, socially, with their family, troubles that they're going through in their personal life. I mean, this is so far reaching. Where should we start? I mean, because one of the first conversations you and I had was about your morning routine and what you do in the morning. How do we reach people who are listening and say, this is what you can do on a daily basis to up your mental game?
Sure. So I would say from the most simplistic standpoint, I would start with gratitude. I mean,
Yep.
gratitude is very much a big part of my life. And I do morning gratitude before I put my feet on the ground. I always tell people that, like, my goal is before my 2 feet hit the ground, I choose 3 things from the day prior that are simple that I'm grateful for. And it doesn't mean stuff. It's not like, oh, AJ gave me a signed jersey. Bryce gave me, some leftover diapers he never used that are clean. It's not like it's what people gave me. It's like, it could be something simple. And the simpler, the better. Like, for
Right.
example, I remember one morning, and I don't know what it was, but it was like a really good morning for me. Or it must have been like a good morning, but also a really good day before. I remember two of the things. I don't remember the third, but two of them. One of them was I really, at one point, was aware that the sun was on the back of my head, and it felt really good.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that simple. And then the second thing is I felt very much at peace. And here I am sitting there thinking about these two things, and I was like, I was blown away by myself. I was like, wow, that's powerful stuff. But it's not anything that you have to work so hard to achieve either, right? So, gratitude is a big part of it, and where gratitude starts too, and what kind of goes along with that is to be present. Like, if you look too far in the past, you become very anxious and you have regret. If you look too far, forward, you also have some anxiety and anticipation, and but when you're present, it's just kind of like you're in the now. It's a good place to be, and it's so hard to really be in the present. And I struggle with that. I shouldn't say I struggle, but I work on it. And so I would say, to answer your question, definitely gratitude. And then I try to do something to get my heart rate going up in the morning. I also state that today is going to be a good day. I'm like, today's going to be a good day. Today I got this. And then I also think of one small goal that I want to achieve. And I try to put something into my body that shows it respect. Like, it could be, water with lemon. It could be aloe water. It could be apple cider vinegar pill, turmeric, whatever. It doesn't matter. But just to show respect to my body. And it's just a great way to start your day, because most people don't realize, but the first 2 hours of your day really, really set the tone, and are also a big part of when you're very effective during those first 2 hours for most people. I know some people aren't morning people, but
Well,
yeah,
it's
that's
like
where I
when
would.
people say make the bed, and that'll be like, it'll lead to a productive day. But what you just said is taking that one step further. Bryce, do you have a any type of routine that you do in the morning, or nothing?
To be honest, my morning
Or do you just
routine
sulk?
right now, with just having the little guy and being a new dad, that is my morning routine. So I don't really have time for this. But what I definitely do, and you and I have talked about this last year when you were struggling a little bit, is like I think visualizing whatever you're going to be doing for that day, and I do this regularly. For work, if I have goals in mind, particularly with fitness, for whatever reason, I can really motivate myself to do this. Is if you have a goal in mind, I get it in my mind's eye right off the bat, in the beginning of the day. And I think you and I talked about this last year, where, like, even as simple as something like, all right, I'm going to crush the gym today, or I'm going to try to go for a PR, or I'm going to hit this segment in mountain biking or road biking, or if we're on doing a Zwift race, and I have whatever expectation I have. Regardless, I make sure that my whole day, I pump myself up, I psych myself up for whatever I'm going to do. And that could be as simple as just um, visualizing it, and then making my routine throughout the day kind of adapt to getting prepared. So I'll have routines that I'll develop where if I know I'm going to be really going hard for something, I want to make sure that my diet's on point. I want to make sure that like I'm getting hydration, but all that is part of the mental process for, like, everything that I do today is going to be about accomplishing this goal. So it's not so much as
Right.
like being neurotic about the nutrients and being neurotic about hydration. That's a small part of it. What I'm really doing is setting a routine that I know that when I'm going into whatever I'm doing, I'm as prepared mentally as I can possibly be. And I do that on a regular basis. Like if I know I have a goal, particularly with fitness or whatever it is, I will get that in my head and develop a routine for my entire day. And it doesn't have to be big things that are distracting from what you really have to do. Like, you could still work and go to school and do everything that you have to do, but the little things where it can help you get dialed for that, whatever you're going to be doing, I think is immensely powerful. And also, there won't be a time where I'll let myself think that I'm not going to be able to do it. Like I think, and that's something that has been a struggle for me, because it's so easy to make excuses, right? I mean, we live lives that it's so easy to not do something difficult. And I don't mean it doesn't have to be physical. It could be anything. It could be making the leap to start a new business. It could be reaching out to somebody you haven't reached out to. Anything that you view as a challenge. We have so many excuses to put it aside, to not do it. Oh, let me binge watch, a few more episodes of whatever. We have a lengthy list of excuses we could use. But if you develop a routine where the little things throughout your day get you kind of mentally dialed for what you're going to accomplish, I think that goes a long way.
One thing you have to be careful with that, and Bryce, I see this happen to you a lot, is
when you fall out of the routine, it kills you.
You have to be able to be willing to be flexible within that routine. If you didn't get as much scratch in your water as you wanted, if you didn't finish the sandwich that you were supposed to eat, you can't let that ruin, you can't let that when your ride starts go, oh shit, like I didn't drink all that water.
Right.
Like what's going to happen?
That is a flip side of the coin. And I think that's an important thing to bring up, because this is all a process. I think the people who are good at this naturally, I'm so envious of, because I know for at least us three, I could probably speak for all of us, where this is something that we continually work at. It's something we recognize in ourselves that's important. We recognize the importance, but it's something that you have to practice just like everything else. So you are right, AJ. I mean, there is ample room to make mistakes. And every time I do that, I think we just talked about it last week. It's like, damn, I didn't do this, that, or the next thing. And it does mess you up. But I think that's a perfect opportunity to do your fabled reset right there. It's like, okay, who cares? Like, how much does that affect me if I didn't get, if I didn't finish all this food that I wanted to eat before this, whatever, so it's important to start recognizing those things. But I think what my point was to establish a baseline. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time now, and I know that that's a hole that I can dig myself into. But I think the important thing is to start with, to get yourself there. Like the development of some of those routines is net more beneficial.
Jay, let me ask you this.
Sure.
And I want to ask you this too, Bryce. What percentage would you give the mental game, like the importance of the mental game in, let's just say motocross specifically? What percentage would you give to it?
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? I'll do one better. I'll quote you a couple riders. I asked Henry Miller what he thinks the percentage is. He said 50-50. J-Bone, Jeremy Albrecht said he thinks 80%, which I was surprised by that. And the reason why he said that is Phil Nicoletti apparently was a beast, or is a beast during practice, and no one's faster. But then once it comes to game time, he just can't get it done. Well, I mean, obviously he got it done at Unadilla, but what I'm saying, I shouldn't say he can't get it done. That's not fair to Phil. What I mean is his potential has not been experienced to the level that I believe they feel he could exhibit. And so, it's over 50%. But here's the question that boggles my mind. Let's just say we agree on 50%. And to answer your question, I would say it's about 60 to 80%, depending on the rider. But with that said, how much time and effort is put into the mental game with those people that do race?
That's the crazy
And
part.
yeah, that's the crazy part right
Bryce,
there.
what would you attest to it? Because I would argue higher.
I look. I think that it would be higher than 50%. I think that, not to pick on anyone in particular, but I recall a conversation that you had specifically with Devin Sorensen last year. And he had just come off the track, and he was like, he wasn't committing to. I think it was he wasn't committing to jumping whatever route, whatever line you were talking about, and he was like so down on himself that he was like, you had talked about maybe it was jumping a triple, and he's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I won't be doing that. Like, immediately wrote himself off from even attempting it. And you were like, why, dude? Like, you can definitely do that. So, and like, clearly he has the skill to do it. He has the fitness to do it. He has the equipment to do it. Like, and yet the only thing that was preventing him from doing it was his brain. So I think, right there, you could argue that's 99% mental.
I coached Devin, by the way.
I think it varies.
Oh, do you?
I think it varies.
It was triple.
Case by case, for sure. Like, yeah, there's some guys out there that are a little out of shape. There's some guys out there that their technique isn't the best. But when you get to the very tippity top of the sport, especially, like the top 5 to 10 guys where there's such little separating everyone, I would argue 85-90% is mental. I mean,
well, I think a perfect example is look at Eli Tomac and Ryan Dungey in the last year that Ryan Dungey won the championship. And it's like, on paper, I would make the argument. I think that I would make the argument that Tomac was faster, stronger, should have won. And what separated them was Dungey's mental prowess. He can stay focused, and he has it for the entire season, and it's always there.
Yeah, and look at a guy like Justin Barcia. I mean, did Justin Barcia all of a sudden remember how to ride fast again this last year? No. He just had a couple good results that snowballed into confidence, and then he started riding like how he knows how to ride. And confidence is so easy to lose, and it's so hard to gain. But it's very obvious when you see guys riding with that confidence. And I can safely say that there's only been 3 or 4, maybe 5 races in my professional career that I've ridden to the best of my ability and that I've been 100% confident on race night. And those are the races that I got 4th and 5th in main events, like the problem is that AJ doesn't show up that often. And what's crazy is the fact that I'm given 90% of it, for me especially, I could safely say 90% of it is mental. And I wouldn't underestimate the power of it for even an amateur rider at an NESC or Winchester and in the New England area. You show up to a local race, I would still argue it's 70% minimum, And the crazy part is nobody practices it. Right? How many people are going out and doing motos? How many people are going to the gym? How many people are cycling? How many people are working on their diet?
I would actually argue that watching the minis is where this stands out the most, because they're not at the level of physical training that like the elite pro guys are. So what's separating one kid from another? Like if you were to take seat time, hold all those physical attributes constant and variables constant, what's separating one kid from another? It's like some kids are reckless abandon and go for it and don't think about the consequences, and some kids are apprehensive and they have self-doubt. And whether that's a nature versus nurture thing is irrelevant. What it boils down to is that there's a huge mental component.
Look at a guy.
Do you know what the problem in moto is? Have you guys
Jay?
noticed what the problem is? Go to any motocross event, and I've studied this, and this is probably the one thing that if you want to trigger me and get me upset, this is the one thing that I struggle with when I go to a motocross event. I listened with Brandon Gregoire. He wanted to take a race off. One of the guys I coach who's had tremendous success with the mental game.
I want to
It's
talk
really
about him in a
elevated.
minute also.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
And
go ahead.
so if you watch or listen rather to anyone that gets off the track, first thing they do, they talk about what went wrong.
Yep.
Literally. And sometimes they never talk about what went right. And I know you touched upon this, AJ, but if that's the first thing you do, you're already thinking that while you're on the bike and you're already talking yourself out of it. You're already beating yourself down. And then when you get off the bike, you know, it's like immediately either if you're a mini guy, sometimes your dad, I mean, I saw some crazy stuff in mini O's and I'm not going to name names and I'm not going to say what I saw. I like, don't even, it like upset, like it honestly, it upsets me. Like I'll say this. I don't care. I've teared up over it. I legit have cried over this, like legit.
Yeah, that's sad.
Cried. And it's like, that's how hard it hit because this kid doesn't understand. And when all a kid wants, all right, if you're 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 years old, what do you want? What do you really want?
Make your parents happy.
That's it. That's it. And if I tried my hardest and I get off the track and maybe I wasn't perfect, right? I get it. Maybe I wasn't perfect. And you know what? Maybe I had a couple mental lapses, right? But the first thing I get is you telling me that I'm not good enough. You want to talk about screwing a kid up. That's how you do it.
Yep.
That's how you do it. And it's not fair, you know? And so, you know, there's a lot of things in motocross and, you know, we're high intensity people. We're people that get it done. A lot of people have successful businesses. You know, if a guy's a plumber in motocross, he's a really good plumber. If he builds houses, he builds really good houses, you know? And so it's almost like we're all like ADHD, like type A, like perfectionists, like a majority of us. And we have to be aware of that. And we have to realize there needs to be some balance in our life. And we need to be a little more positive in our thoughts. And it just, it hurts.
Jay, do you think that that's and AJ, do you think that's because the margin of error in this sport is so low? I mean, you're talking about, you know, from podium, first, second, third, you know, take the outliers like Dungey and Tomac when they're 10 seconds ahead or more. I'm talking about like making the main, or a lot of times just the splits for lap times. We're talking about seconds, tenths of seconds, whatever the case may be. And that difference is either hitting a line completely flawlessly or not. So if you do have the slightest hiccup and you've gotten taken off that line, that is like a basically a self-fulfilling prophecy for the rest of your moto is like, oh shit, how can I hit that line? And then if you miss it again, it's like it almost lends itself to being negative. So I think it's if we could somehow, and I think you're doing a great job with this, Jay, channel everything to a positive tunnel as opposed to the negative tunnel and come off the track and like make it a point where instead of coming off and saying, oh, I missed this, I missed that, I whatever the case was, say immediately the first thing you say is, I nailed this, I nailed that, I nailed that, and let all the positives sink in. And then when you're dissecting it later, and we don't want to talk about in a way where you're missing something or you did something wrong, but just constructive. Right. So, hey, we did all those things great. Now, where can we improve? Instead of going down this spiraling death swirl.
I think that'd be a good goal for any rider is to, when you come off the track, have 3 things that you can name that you're happy that you did and start there.
Absolutely.
And I think that actually, as we talk about that actually sounds like something that I'll just start to apply. When you come off the track,
we're absolutely doing that this year.
Name 3 things that you're happy that you did, right? And what that'll start to snowball into all the positive things. So when you're on the track, and everyone's guilty of this, you're going to have a part of the track that you don't like. But you can't focus on that part of the track because then you're going to, every lap, you're going to be thinking only about that section. And you're going to apply too much pressure and you're going to screw it up and then you get mad at yourself and it's just one thing after the other. Instead, just think about a section that you like. Think about the triple that you like whipping over. Think about the whoop section that you're good at. Think about the one corner that you're good at. Put your attention there. Next thing you know, that positive energy, you're going to start hitting the corner that you sucked at 5 minutes ago better and smoother. It sounds so silly and it sounds so simple, but it just takes practice. And one of the first people I think of when I think about just pure negativity is my dad. And it's funny, but it's not at the same time, because he's always just been a really negative person. And it could be the silliest thing to set him off, and he'll just focus on it all the time. And instead, all it takes is to just change your state of mind, switch that energy to something else. When you come off the track, oh, I was railing that one turn. I made a great pass on that number 20 guy. I didn't get arm pump. I felt really loose on the bike. Boom, 3 positive things.
Hey, I'll give you one better. Why not? If you make this something that you're going to practice this season, and I think that we are going to do this. Like I've basically just set that in stone. This is what we're going to do. But I think anybody can use this. Is every lap, you're going to pick out something from every lap that you did good. And if you go into whatever it is, heat race, or let's start with qualifying, right? If you start at the beginning of the day and you go in thinking to yourself, okay, I'm going to look for things positive to dissect after this thing, then I feel like your performance is going to be more positive, because you're going to literally be looking for the things that you can mention that are positive about it, as opposed to like just going in and saying, oh, I missed this, I missed that. And you know what? I think this is going to go well with what we started practicing last year. Was you got to start hitting and this isn't just you, this is a general statement, but you in particular did this. It was, you got to start hitting right off the bat. Time to practice. Everything is hit it like a race.
Yep.
Don't wait for it. Don't wait for it. Don't wait for the last minute. Don't wait for the last lap. Hit it hard as you can right off the bat, and find something positive in that heater lap right off the rip, and then build on that positivity the whole rest of the time. And when you come off, you say, man, I hit that heater lap right off the rip. That was awesome. I did this, this, and this. And we're going to have a nice big pile of positivity to run with into the next event.
So, Jay, what did we do last year before I went out? Anytime I went out on the track, do you remember what we did?
I do not recall.
We set 3, I think it was 3. We set 3 small goals for that, whatever, whether it was time qualifying, free practice. 3 small goals. So that was one of them, Bryce, was get out first. Or if you're not first, be in that front group in the practice. Set the tone right away. Go out like don't want to be reckless, but go out like you're in a race. The next goal would be 2 laps fast, then 1 slow lap. Not every other. Third goal would be maybe something specific, like, all right, I'm going to do that triple in that rhythm. So it's simple. You don't want to have 6 of them, because you're going to forget about them and you're just going to flood your mind with crap. 3 simple things. And what it does also is it takes your mind away from a lot of the junk that you don't need to be worrying about. You just set 3 simple goals. And I talk to my students a lot about this too, is having, and I might have said this in one of the other podcasts, is having a game plan. And the crazy thing about the sport is the amount of variables that there are. You never know what's going to happen, and you don't want to plan it down to a T, but you have a game plan of what you're going to do. You set a couple of those short-term goals that you can focus on. And that way, when you get out on the track, I see so many people at an amateur level that go out there with zero idea of what's going to happen. They catch up to a rider, there's no plan of attack. You get to them and it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to try to just fly into them and hope something happens. If you have that game plan in place, you can get to that rider and already ahead of time know what you're going to do. Now, Jay, let me ask you this. So if you could, what would you say is my biggest weakness on race day?
Habit.
Habit?
Yeah, I see a lot of times with your riding, I think that there's some habits that you have, like I can almost predict what you're going to do before you even do it. And sometimes I think that habits are strong and they're hard to break, but you can't break a habit, but you can replace certain parts of it. So they have to be replaced, not so much broken. And I think that even though we've discussed, I mean, I honestly like it, I was kind of squirming around in my seat when you were talking about doing the 2 heater laps back to back.
Because how
I
often
don't
do I
know if
do it?
did you correct.
Very rarely. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is you just implied that you did, and I don't understand that. And it's not like you're lying or whatever. That's not it. I don't, I think there's an intention for you to do it and we go out, but I think I think you go on autopilot and it doesn't happen. You know, there's a lot of times where you're rolling stuff when it's go time. And, you know, if I didn't think you were in shape, then that's one thing. But I mean, everyone knows that you're like in shape, man. I mean, and so I think it's habit. I really honestly think that that's what it is. And so the whole thing is this. And you say, all right, so that's my problem. Well, how do we fix it? Right. Where's the opportunity here? Right. So the opportunity is for you to create the habit of training yourself to go on autopilot and run 2 burner laps or 3 burner laps and not roll anything and charge more than you do. And I don't know if you've done that.
Well, the days that I do it are the days that start awesome and continue to be great throughout the day. Like the days, the first one that comes to mind was last year, Gillette Stadium. Last year, St. Louis, where I went out and I just pounded out laps. And what happened? I made the main event right through the semi, and felt great all day because you set that tone right off the bat. The problem with me, and I'm sure a lot of people get like this, is when I start doing instead of going 2 fast laps, 1 slow, or 3 fast laps, 1 slow, you start to do the every other because it turns into a panic, right? And Jay, you could probably see that when I'm out on the track. I go into that kind of, you call it like autopilot, but it's like my crappy autopilot where like I'm just in panic mode the whole time.
Oh, for sure. You like
well,
literally,
partly you get behind people that you shouldn't be behind because I think you take for granted that you're going to have more time to hit it than you end up having. So you like put this kind of obnoxious space between you and whoever's in front of you and you get jammed up or you shouldn't be behind people. That's why I want to see you hit that first, like literally whole shot, whatever qualifier you're in. I want you out front and I want you to use that as your, like, forget about rolling the first few sections or whatever and letting some other people be the guinea pigs and getting behind people and all that. I want you to charge right off the bat.
but he can't
use the clear track.
But that he can't do that though. Do you know why?
Oh, he can do it.
I don't think so. I think but hear me out. The reason I'm saying this is that he has stated numerous times that if he gets the start, that, you know, he doesn't want to feel that pressure. I have heard him say that, I don't even know, maybe 30, 40 times. Okay. Whatever it is. He's stated it so much, it's become reality. And so I would argue that until he changes that conversation in his mind, I'm not saying it's not possible for him to do that, but he's got to start. AJ, you have to start, in my opinion, out of respect, because I love you and I want you to do well, because I know you could do so. Like we all get burned up is we know what you're capable of and we don't feel that you've hit that potential yet, is that you've got to start changing that conversation in your mind and you got to practice it. That's my thing with you is you really have to start there. And you're so smart and you're giving and you're kind. There's so many things you have going for you, but I don't know if you've really put the time into changing the conversation in your mind. You tell me, I could be wrong.
No, I try. I put so much time into it, but almost to a fault where like it's overthought a lot. And then,
okay.
Well, what's just hard about it is I have a game plan, I have the goals, and then it's so easy to, when that gate drops or when they drop the flag for your time qualifying, to just throw it all out the window. It's like I need like a headset and somebody just to be sitting there, in my ear saying, "Remember your 3 goals. Just two laps on, 1 lap off." Like just reminding me to do all the simple stuff because I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. Sometimes you just get caught up in the moment, and what ends up happening is not just one race goes by or one practice goes by. You end up on the plane Sunday morning on the way home and you go, "What what the heck just happened this weekend? What I had all these goals and I didn't do any of them." There's been so many times that that's happened.
Well, you have to be
You
careful
know,
with the goals you set too. I mean, they have to be. I think goals have to start small, and you have to build momentum early, and you have to be careful. Those goals have to be fluid. I think that there's a little bit of perfectionism in some of your earlier qualifiers or even free practice where it's like, I want to burn a perfect lap. And it's like, well, there is no perfect lap.
Right.
So instead, why not burn a lap where no matter what happens, even if you crash, like that is the lap that you're supposed to go fast. So
Just
you have to
get up
get
and
up
finish it.
as fast as you can, and you have to finish. Even if there's 3 guys that block you, you still have to charge, because it's not about the result, it's about the thought process.
Right. I
It's the
I love
I
that,
totally
Jay.
agree.
I love that.
Totally agree.
Yes.
And if we want to go real deep into this, I agree with the whole perfectionism thing, and I think that's a huge problem for me. No one would argue that my technique is bad. If anything, my technique is almost thought about too much because of the way I was raised on a dirt bike. And Jay, you talk about seeing like crazy 50 parents and yelling at their kids. My dad was right up there with the best of them. Like I would get off that track and I would not even go back to the truck because I was so afraid of what was going to happen. I could win a race and I'd come off the track and I was terrified to go back to the truck because if I dabbed my foot in front of them or I slid out in a turn and I still won the race, it didn't matter. Like that was the end of the world, And I think subconsciously, I'm sure that somehow works its way into my riding now. Well, and
1000%.
right, and a good example, I was at Club MX a couple weeks ago, and Mike, one of the trainers, he goes, just out of nowhere, he goes, "Hey, Jay," and I haven't seen him in years. He goes, and this was after watching me just ride the first couple motos at Club just by myself. He goes, "Do you think a lot while you ride?" That's the first question he asked. I'm like, "Yeah, all the time." And he's like, just stop." He's like, "Just," he goes, "just ride your dirt bike." He goes, "You're so darn good." He's like, "But all you do is think, and you're trying to be too perfect on the bike." I'm like, "I know. Trust me. I that's one thing I need to work on. Is you make a mistake, let it go. Don't just focus on the mistake that you made."
Would you ever consider, this is just a spitballing idea here, but would you ever consider throwing headphones in and listening to music during practice?
I had tried it when I was younger, and I remember not liking it, but I haven't tried it recently.
And the only reason I say that is because it may be an opportunity to get out of your own head. And like if you, because I've been in this scenario too, where especially when you're alone, so during practice, is your voice becomes so loud in your own head. And I don't know if you experience that the same way I do, but I mean, it's almost like a deafening experience where you're like you exactly like you said, you overthink things, you start to doubt yourself, your internal dialogue is turned up so loud that it takes away from your muscle memory almost.
Oh,
and
for
so I'm
sure.
wondering if introducing like a distraction will allow you to get out of your own head, focus on something different mentally, and rely on what your body is absolutely accustomed to from muscle memory. And I'm wondering what that would do.
Jay, what would you consider your strong points or your weaknesses, whether it's supermoto or your car racing?
So as far as strengths go with like the auto racing and the supermoto, I think a lot of it is I've learned so much from auto racing about data acquisition and data analysis. and using tools to figure out what you're doing. Because there's so many times where you feel like what you're doing is faster, when in actuality, maybe just your bike sounds like it's running at a higher RPM and you think you're going faster, but really nothing trumps like what is the actual speed of you mid-corner. Mid-corner speed is a big thing in auto racing. So I think auto racing has helped my ability to race motorcycles, and motorcycle racing has allowed me to be a little more aggressive in turns and stuff when I'm doing auto racing. So it's interesting how they both complement each other in tools like the Lit Pro. Like I'm going to start working with trying to figure out Lit Pro this season on the bike with Supercross. And then we have some tools in auto racing that mirror Lit Pro, but just aren't as sexy, I guess you would say. They're a little harder to understand and get to know. But once you learn the value of data, it's the best thing you can use for yourself. So, from a mental standpoint, I think I'm pretty good. I get myself pumped. Some people like to be zen. I like to be pumped. But data is the key. And the only weakness that I feel that has cost me throughout my entire racing career is I take a long time to be good at anything. I have to practice more than anyone. In school, I had to read books 5 times to get a concept that everyone else would have to do once. So I've had to be more disciplined than the average. But yeah, so that would answer that question. And,
Would you say? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Would you say that I'm zen or I'm a pumped kind of guy? Just curious what your thoughts are.
No, that's a good question, because I immediately didn't go to an answer. So I'm kind of thinking about this. I would say you're more of a zen. Like you're always the cool cucumber, and it's a good question, because now that I'm listening to myself think through this answer, I think that I need to, and we all need to be more aware of the racer instead of our agenda, right? So for me, when I'm listening to my thought process on my answer, I'm like, wow, AJ's zen, but have I tried to pump you up? Because to me, I don't think it's right if I try to pump you up, because that's my angle. But if you're zen, I should zen you out. What am I over trying to pump you up?
No, I think at first, when we first met, yeah. And then whether you consciously were making an effort, or it seems like maybe you're subconsciously were doing this, you started to understand the way I work a little bit more. Because Bryce, you would probably agree that I'm pretty zenned out, right? Like I'm just blah.
Yeah,
like
I would say
I don't get pumped up. I'm like, even for me I just started yelling on the line, like just doing a quick yell just to kind of as a power move. That even makes me uncomfortable. So yeah, like I think you've done a much better job, and that's a big thing about having the right people in my corner, because there were certain people that didn't seem to understand that concept, and the more they would try to go pump up on me, the more I would move, like kind of turn into myself even more.
But
You know
I think that's why this stuff is so cool, though, because like there's definitely triggers. Like there's something in there that will pump you up. There is a tactic, and
Right.
I think that's true for everybody. You just have to kind of be able to tap into it and find it, and then manipulate it. So like, I saw in you the ability to get pumped up last year, especially towards the end of the season. I think you did a better job of like being self-aware of pumping yourself up and kind of doing that. And I think it kind of circles back to what we were talking about just like, your internal dialogue and talking to yourself and kind of talking yourself into like a mental state. Like yes, it is uncomfortable for you to pump yourself up and get all psyched on the line, but that's probably a benefit to you. You're stepping out of your comfort zone. You're kind of getting yourself prepared to be uncomfortable, like in a race scenario, and you're manifesting a mental state into a physical state, and like that is like a big kind of circle. I think is and really trying to find the balance between getting yourself in a heightened mental state that will hopefully foster a heightened physical state.
But and Jay, on your end too, and sorry to interrupt again, but I think you're exactly right about that being hugely important, especially in your role. You have to be able to quickly read the person and be able to tell what's going to work and what's not going to work for them, because some things could easily backfire,
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And Bryce, I'm listening to your comments, and what I'm wondering too is, if you're going to make someone feel uncomfortable, I agree that being uncomfortable is a huge thing to work on and to practice. And I actually, it's one of the top 3 things I work on and have worked on in the last month. But I wouldn't want to be uncomfortable on a race day. I'd want to work on being uncomfortable the days prior to a race, but not be uncomfortable on a race day. So,
Right.
Right. I agree. I agree.
distinguishing factor of like when you want to be uncomfortable and when you don't.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah, there's
And,
a time
you
and
know,
a place for that, for sure.
Yeah, and AJ, let me ask you this. I don't know if you talked about this on other podcasts. I've listened to them, and I don't believe you have. But you know, there's also activation, and do you want to discuss like the difference between activation and getting pumped up, because it's kind of one's
Yes.
mental, one's physical. So I don't know if you can talk about that.
Okay, so yeah, good. Thank you for bringing this up, because I think the activation is my way of being pumped up. It's very mechanical in a way, and I don't know. I feel good about it and I feel confident about it, and I guess that's all that matters.
So
So
explain to everybody what it is, AJ.
what it is we call it activation. It's basically a warm up for not just your body, but kind of your mind and your senses as well. And it just puts you in that heightened state so that your reflexes can be faster, and it kind of wakes up your nervous system. So for me, like on the line, I don't feel quite as nervous, and in the past I'd be guilty of like feeling like I was gonna poop my pants on the line. I'd be so nervous. Um, and I feel that after I do this activation, it gets rid of that feeling. So what we do is we have this process we go through. I start with just not static stretches. What's the other type of stretch?
Dynamic.
Dynamic warm up. So yeah, like leg swings and stuff like that. And then we move right into where, and I have a blast doing with this with Jay and Bryce. I might have done it with you too, where we have 3 or 4 tennis balls, and we went to Petco, or we went to some dog store, pet store, and we got tennis balls that are, one's a football, one's a soccer ball, one's a actual tennis ball, and the other one's something else. And they each stood for something. One was attack, one was breathe, one was flow, and the other was something else. And charge, something like that, right? So we would then toss them to each other, all 4 at the same time, which that in itself is difficult to do. And then as we'd start to get in a rhythm, he would break up the rhythm by, he'd call out the ball in the air, and I'd have to say what it is. So I'd have to look at it, quickly connect what that ball is. So attack, charge, flow, breathe. And we'd go through the whole thing, and then boom, reverse. We'd go with the left hand now. And we'd have a couple different things we'd go through with that. People look at you like you're crazy, but honestly, I think we started that in 2017. Over the past 2 years, that's been probably the best thing I've been able to do right before I go out. And we time it so that that's done, and then I literally hop on the bike and go. You try to coordinate it as close as you can to go time as possible. If there's a 15 or 20-minute gap in between, then you've kind of defeated the purpose. But that for me is my pump up. And even at the end, we do like this high five thingy, and it just like, it's my subtle way of getting really pumped up, and it just gets my body warmed up and revved up and ready to go.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot like neuroplasticity exercises. You know, you should look into maybe even just checking out like Luminosity or Elevate or some of those. They have a lot of those games that you could play with yourself to do exactly that. I mean, kind of be quick on your feet mentally, and you know that all helps make quick decisions and physical. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Can we give a shout out to Rob Klingen, because he was the one that brought the activation.
Absolutely.
I don't know, Rob Klingen. If I'm incorrect in saying this, I thought didn't he have a connection, AJ, with someone at Reebok, and the Reebok athlete or athletic trainer brought the activation in? Because I feel like I don't
good memory.
I take credit for that. You know, I mean, I really think Rob has brought a lot to your game, and maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, so Rob introduced me to his buddy. I believe they went to college together. His name is Dave. He now he's an influencer for Reebok, and he men's health, and he does a bunch of different stuff. Amazing guy. And super smart, super fit. I met him in Phoenix 2017, I want to say. Myself, Rob, and him were out there, and I basically gave him full access to me that race day. And I said, listen, I'm a sponge, do whatever you need to do. Like at that point, I wasn't desperate, but I was willing to try anything to change it up and to find something that worked. And he ran me through his program, which was basically focused primarily on that activation. And I felt like $1,000,000. So ever since that day, I memorized it. And then any race Rob was at, we would utilize it there. And then now, doesn't matter who's at the race with me, even if it's an intern through the collective experience, or it doesn't matter who, I teach them how to do it with me. And we do it every single time I go out, whether it's free practice, time qualifying, heat race, LCQ, main event. Right before any time I touch the track, we do the activation. It takes 3 to 5 minutes, and I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Hey, Jay, have you ever experimented or heard of binaural beats? The principle.
No.
So
Binaural? Wait, what's the
yeah,
first word?
that's a one word. It's like BINAURAL, binaural.
When do you have time to wipe butt if you're coming up with all these big words and studying all this cool stuff? Like, I don't understand. How do you maintain a relationship? Like, job, wipe ass. Are we allowed to say ass? Wipe ass.
Of course.
And learn all these cool things, and then at the same time have enough time to correct people when they pronounce things wrong. I mean, I'm
It's a
impressed.
challenge.
Can we have a moment of silence for you, or is that not like
Sure.
podcast?
Of course, I am a jack of all trades. Hey, so what the concept is, and I heard about it several years ago, and I've dabbled in it, and part of it has scared me a little bit. So what the principle is, like, there are certain like combinations of sounds and frequencies that activate your brain and can trigger like a physical response. And it's not music, but it's sounds that are, I guess, and I
It's
haven't listened
frequencies.
to all that many.
Two sounds of
Different
slightly different frequencies perceived as a periodic variation in volume whose rate and the difference of, and it just says, I'm on Wikipedia
Yay,
here.
Google. Oh,
You know, Mikey would be a good person to ask about this, because maybe that has something to do too with like the BPM, like basically the flow of a song or the speed of a song has a lot to do with how it makes people feel.
Oh,
and
for
there's
sure.
like
Like
very
when you
specific.
listen to music, that's over 120 beats per minute, your heart and mind kind of acclimate to that 120 beat per minute state. So like when they recommend you listen to fast paced music during a workout because your mind can match the physical intensity. It's very interesting. But the binaural beats isn't music per se, but it's frequencies, like you mentioned, AJ, that supposedly have a physical response mechanism in your brain that's like measurable via an EEG. So there's like documented evidence that there is a physical change in your brain activity when you listen to these combinations of sounds. And I'm just curious if that would help the activation process. Not that you would have an area to quietly listen to something, but maybe just in practice, or maybe anybody out there who's looking for one additional leg up. I mean, I think a lot of all this stuff is just experimenting what works for people. And I've dabbled in it, but then I heard like some contradictory evidence that might actually send you into a kind of a
bad
weird
state.
Not bad, but I can't remember specifically, so I apologize. But it was like it was like one of those science things that I subscribe to, and it was binaural beats can cause you to not slip into a coma, but go what's the word I'm looking for?
Trance?
No.
Well,
Catatonic.
Huh.
Bryce, I think a couple things. Like one, oddly enough, that it's so funny that you're mentioning this. Not even 5 days ago, I was really struggling to sleep, and my girlfriend will attest to this, I can fall asleep anywhere. But I was struggling, and I just randomly was looking through YouTube, and up on my feed came like this music that you play for your subconscious versus conscious is music that you play. And it had these like, it was a little freaky at first, like, you are beautiful, you are amazing, and like this really like relaxing voice. I played it for like 6 hours while I was asleep, woke up, and I'm testing it. And then I did the hertz, like what you're talking about. How funny is the universe? Like, I actually tried that. Like, I'm not kidding. It was either 4 or 5 days ago. And all it was just and it wasn't like a human doing it, like a
Right.
chanting monk. It was exactly what you're talking about. And I'll be honest with you, I only tried it twice, but there's different ways to look at it. It's like, I like the idea of trying things once or even 5 times and seeing what happens. And if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, move forward and move on to the next thing. But, I think society, and where a lot of us go wrong, is we only like to try things if like the majority have done it. And we tend to be sheep. And even though the first time I had that music playing and the humming and the hertz, and it was like 175 hertz, I thought it was a little odd, but to me, it's all your perspective. I said, well, it's odd because you've never done it before. So if something feels uncomfortable, it's because you've never done it before. Why not try it? What if you gain from it? Okay, good. So the positives are, what if you gain? What if you actually learn from the process of trying something that's different and odd? What if you get into this momentum of, wow, I'm going to try all these things to make my life better. To me, the value is more so in the process than the outcome, because now I want to try all these different things. I want to research what you're talking about. I want to research neuroplasticity. And, I wish more people would be open-minded and more people would take risks and take chances and realize that a lot of good can come from it. And that's where growth comes from.
Speaking of playing things while you sleep, Bryce, do you put anything on for the little guy when he's sleeping, or
so yes, we do. We have a sound machine that just plays white noise. I mean, it has a bunch of different functions, but we just put it on white noise. And we initially did that like when he was first born. It was so he wouldn't get woken up by little things, and we wouldn't get woken up by little things. So we had it in our room when he slept in our room. But now that he's older and he sleeps in his room, we have it in his room, and he just has a static.
Okay, because we gotta get some motocross videos playing in the background while he sleeps immediately. That's what my dad used to do that to me. From literally the time I was born and I was a baby, he was putting on Crusty Demons and playing all these movies at night when I was sleeping. Yeah, and then when I was sleeping, he would read Racer X or not. I don't know if Racer X existed back then. It must have, right?
Yeah,
he would read motocross magazines to me when I was a kid. Like, yeah, I was primed from an early age. So
man, that's such a cool like little case study. I mean, I wonder how much that impacted your development. I would imagine a lot. Like,
I believe
you're priming your brain. You're 100%.
I mean, look at the way I ride a dirt bike. I never went to a riding school. There was schools that existed, like how I have the academy. Gary Bailey went around and did the schools, and Gary Semix, and there was guys that did it. I never did any of that. How did I learn how to ride the way I did? I just watched it. I listened to it. I breathed. Like, it was all I did when I was a kid. I fantasized over that stuff. So I bet you it plays some sort of factor.
Well, you didn't talk about the negatives. Are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah. Yep.
I was told by Allie, your fiance, that every time you take a poop, she's got to make a noise. And I think that's odd. And also, every time you guys are about to initiate a lovemaking session, that she needs to make a gate drop sound like.
It has its negatives. It has its negatives.
Yeah, but I mean, let's ask ourselves, like, even though your relationship might be unique, I mean, you are a pro supercross racer. So, I mean, was it worth it?
Yes. Yes, it was worth
it. I love it. Well, I think there's a ton here, right? And there isn't a podcast. Oh, go ahead.
Wait, you can't go ahead. You said 15 minutes. We're at 20.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Well, Jay, I'm going to have to edit that out because nobody knows that.
Nobody knows what? Are we not supposed to tell secrets on podcast?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to edit all this out.
No, for those of you that are listening, we can talk about it.
Well, I'm going to edit it out anyway.
You are?
You're wasting your breath. Yeah.
Why? This is AJ's podcast. You're the co-host. You got to clear that through AJ.
Then he could edit it.
I think we should leave it. All right.
Oh, God.
All right. So there's one
Go
more
ahead.
thing.
Tell the whole story. No, now you have to tell the story because now I'm not editing it.
Okay, good. Yeah. So Jay decided to let his phone die. And this was what, 5 days ago? So we've been in a limbo trying to get all three of us you reunited for about a week. And it seems like anytime it's about to happen, something goes catastrophically wrong. Somebody's food sets on fire. Somebody's got to go run an errand. Somebody's baby disappeared.
What?
There's lots of weird things happening. I don't think this podcast
AJ's
was
been the
meant to
most
be.
accommodating. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to vote for AJ being the most accommodating to reactivate this final statement and session.
Granted, I've been out of commission because of my teeth. So, but yeah. Okay, so guys, I got one more thing to add to this, and then we can stop because Bryson, you were about to say it. We could talk for hours and hours and hours, and go any which direction we want with this. But I think one big thing, and I have an article pulled up here on inspire.com, it's called, but I was just kind of using this as a reference. And one of the first points is say yes. And I just think that's such a cool point because that's something, whether I realize it or not, I live by to a T. And
AJ, want to try this heroin?
say yes. Do it.
What a loser.
Like, how many
Are a loser?
what's the worst that could happen?
I sure did.
Is this podcast like? Are we? This is ending like interesting. This is not the direction I thought this was going to end.
So
It's
this
all good.
contradicts everything the DARE program would say. But say yes. Whether like any opportunity, and I'll continue to use Jeremiah, my mechanic, as an example for this. Jeremiah was the type that was very not, I guess, stuck in his ways. He followed his routine. He grew up and lived in Cape Cod in really a small town, and there was opportunities that might have come, but I think most people just let them pass by because it just sounds like too crazy an idea, or what could happen, and it's scary. I understand that, but I got him kind of in that say yes mentality. Jeremiah, you wanna go to Ecuador? Oh yeah, okay. Jeremiah, you want to go to Australia with me for 3 weeks? Yeah, okay, sure, let's do it. You're not going to regret saying yes to those things. You're not going to regret saying yes to these crazy opportunities. The first time I got the invite to Australia, I got a call at 4 a.m. because it was 4 p.m. their time, and they forgot about the time difference. I answer the phone, and it's the promoter at the event, and he goes, "Hey, AJ, do you want to come over and race?" I'm like, it's 4 a.m. He's like, I'm like, when? He goes, next week we have a race, next weekend. I'm like, okay, let's do it. I ended up going to Australia for 3.5 weeks, celebrated my 21st birthday while I was there. It was one of the best trips I've ever had. And there's been so many things like that have happened in my life. Just from simply adopting that mentality of, don't be reckless and don't put no thought into it, but at the same time, like, go for things. Don't be afraid to try things that you normally would say no to and pass up the opportunity on.
I agree.
I'm a big believer in that. But then again, I'm very different than most people in that sense. Like, I think about the repercussions, I suppose, but I don't really care. Like, I believe that I have the strong belief that if I just work hard and continue to pursue these crazy opportunities that pop up, it's going to lead me to the direction that I want to go. And I don't know what direction that is. So that's kind of scary. But at the same time, like, good things keep happening. So you continue to work hard.
What's the worst that can happen?
Right. And that's a scary mindset to have, I think. But I think it's good to scare yourself in that sense a little bit. And Jay, you've kind of done the same thing a bunch of times. I mean, you've been with me enough, and we've been on the road together at Supercrosses where things don't go how you plan for them to go, but you just you're along for the ride and you just take advantage of the opportunities, right?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, these are the technical difficulties that a fledgling podcast has to deal with. So, because we have literally no more time, we hate to end this so abruptly, but Jay has disappeared once again. So, look, there's a lot to take in, there's a lot to digest. Jay, I think we'll come back for some more episodes, and we'll keep doing the dive into this for everybody.
Yeah, I think it ended on an appropriate note. I mean, and we could talk about this all day long. So I think this gives you guys a little insight, hopefully maybe some tips and tricks to try. Again, I think what we stress too is everything is different. Everything has a different effect on everyone. So what works for me may not work for you, Bryce. What works for you may not work for Jay. Don't be afraid to try these things out, and be patient. You know, I'm 25 years old. I've been pro since I was 16. I'm going on my 10th season, and I still haven't perfected everything, but I've really honed things in over the past 9 years, and it's taken that long of that trial and error to see what really works for me.
Definitely. Keep practicing, everybody, and we hope you enjoyed it. All right, everybody. That was a great conversation we had with Jay. We certainly enjoyed it. I know there's a lot there, and I know we got into some moto-specific stuff a few times, but if you really listen, I think there's something in there for everybody. And we hope that if there's anything you could take out of this episode, look, I think the reset philosophy is excellent. Definitely going to start implementing that in my day-to-day routine. I think that's an extremely powerful tool. And I think there's a lot there for everybody to try to focus on some little improvement they could do on a day-to-day basis, and really practice this mental strength stuff.
Agreed. And like we said all throughout, and we said it at the beginning, it takes practice. So be patient, set those small little goals to just try to become a little bit better of a person every single day, and look at a negative opportunity as a chance to, or a negative scenario as an opportunity to make yourself a better person, right? So take that quick second to just breathe in deep, realize that it's not all that bad, and try to make the best of the situation. But again, we have to give a big thanks to Dave Drakes at thecollectiveexperience.com. Big supporters of episode 5?
Yes, sir.
Go over to thecollectivexp.com, apply for the internship, check out the amateur support program. Those of you that are looking to do the amateur days this year at the Supercross races, I think this is a huge opportunity for you guys, or just fans of the sport alike. Go on, check out the fan support, the fan program that they offer. I mean, they offer so many cool things with in the industry, and for anyone that wants to get their foot in the door in the Supercross industry, it can be tough if you don't know people, but this is absolutely the best way you can do it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dave. You've been a supporter right from the beginning, and I know we're not too many episodes in, but we look forward to your continued support throughout this adventure. So thank you, Dave. Everybody go check them out, thecollectivexp.com, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Toodaloo.